We're talking about AI. Before we talk about AI, briefly, chat and panel, I'm curious, do you see AI as a tool that's going to be beneficial to the world, that we can find a way to make this work for us and really help society and jobs and stuff like that? Or do you see it as doomsday? Panel, I'd love to. Decade, do you have any opinion on AI?
It's useful as a tool. I've been using it to help me with homeschooling my children.
Wow.
Very
How does that
useful.
work? How does that work out?
Oh, well, I'll just type in something along the lines of give me 20 essential words for a 7-year-old to know how to spell in accordance with the British curriculum.
Okay.
And then it will spit out a load of words for me to use. It's just things like that. Just sometimes I'll write something down and then I'm like, could I get a bit of extra on that? And then Google's got Gemini on it. That's helpful.
Right.
Definitely helpful for helping with research.
Okay.
But
Beautiful.
you just, it's the same with anything in moderation. That's the main thing.
Do you think it's something that can be moderated, or do you think like once it's released, it's here we go, strap in?
It's different for every person, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the stuff that I see with AI really makes me cringe. But then other stuff, I'm like, oh, well, that's inevitable that's going to happen. But then there's other things that it can be really, really useful for. So, yeah, it's just, it depends on the user. Like anything can be abused.
Okay. Pickle?
I'm kind of the same mindset. Like, I think it is useful for a tool. I think that the way corporations are, like large corporations are using AI in some aspects are inappropriate, because I do feel like it has affected the job market greatly. And I feel like it is contributing to, at least in America, the economic, the employment recession that we're having in certain aspects. So I'm a little disappointed in that, but I think it'll catch up to us pretty quickly, as it has been put into use. I think it's useful for a tool. I draw, I do art and stuff. I'm not personally for my artwork. I personally don't really care if my artwork is ran through AI generation, because I kind of feel like at a certain point it's inevitable.
Okay.
I didn't understand how other artists can not sympathize with me on that. But yeah, I think it's useful as a tool. I do think that, depending on how things go, it could get maybe a little weird in the future with the whole like doomsday thing. But I don't think we're gonna end up with like a like horrible situation.
All right, so
in that respect,
you could see this as having a positive outcome at the end of the day.
If it's used correctly and not by very selfish people, yes.
Okay, well, let's hope the corporations don't become selfish, though. there's the trick.
That's wishful thinking.
Yeah, that's always the trick. And Blabs, do you have any thoughts on AI? Just kind of quick.
It's similar to the girls, I'd say, but also, yeah, as a tool. For example, I use it for like thumbnails, because I'm a terrible editor. So if I want the background removed, I just press that button and bam, I'm good to go. Do I like that it's doing all these crazy things like deepfakes and all this stuff? No, I don't like those. But as like a simple tool that can help me with like thumbnails and stuff, I'm all for it, even though on the other hand, it's basically taking away someone else's job, because there are editors and things like that and people who make thumbnails for a living. So I'm like, But it's also like the people with back in the day who were, over time, you stop using certain things, you progress to something else, and like it's just kind of a recycling of people, I guess, if that makes sense. I'm trying to think of an example. Basically, when certain people wouldn't have a job anymore, and then I guess you could say, let's for example, like silent movies.
Like the printing press?
Yeah, the printing press or silent movies, actors who were doing all the, they weren't actually speaking, and then they brought in the actors. Well, those other actors were retired because turns out they have shit voices. They can't actually do the right lines or whatever it is, so they were retired, and new people came in. So it's kind of like that, I guess.
Okay. Well, let's I always think it's good to have that conversation, especially when that is a topic. So let's talk about this. This is this AI character swap is insane. Do we have that queued up?
Yeah, so I'm gonna play this on mute because it does have lots of copyright music.
I got hoes.
Shout out copyright from YouTube. But here it is, which is crazy. So this is the real guy down below, and this is the person. This is AI.
This is one of the things that actually kind of scares me about AI, because one of my coworkers, she's 45 and not very technologically literate.
Mm-hmm.
She actually got scammed recently pretty badly, where they were using AI, like an app like this, to make themselves look like federal agents.
Wow.
And they had all of her information because it was leaked online. And they essentially blackmailed her. And then they also, once they got her on the phone and had her samples of her voice and, images of her and everything, they actually used AI to call her family members posing as her to ask them for money. And that was very scary.
Yeah, and even people who are content creators too. I imagine you could make a video pretending to be that host and saying some pretty terrible things, and no one's going to know that was AI generated. So this would kind of be a pretty terrifying thing. Now, the technology here is extremely impressive. First of all, do we know if it's 100% legit that this wasn't, for instance, like actually live, that they were, maybe they just put their video in AI and then it output? Do we know for a fact that this is actually like in real time?
Based on this, generate on local machine up to 20 seconds at 4K L2 TX2. So this is all him. So I'm assuming it's real. It's all from
Because
this
once
guy.
they can do it in real time, then
AI
that becomes
educator.
Then that becomes interesting. So, because for instance, you could do, some small content creator could say today's guest is Brad Pitt, and then just have their roommate basically be Brad Pitt, and like your ratings go through the roof. So, panel, what do you guys think of this, as far as, especially as content creators yourself? Does this scare you or does this excite you?
I don't like it. No, I don't like other people using like my voice or my likeness and saying things that I would never say. I mean, it's already happening though. So one of my friends uses my AI voice for TTS. So I say I say some pretty wild shit. I've been saying the N-bombs and all this other stuff.
Well, it's just your regular day. I mean,
this is also true. But and sometimes it will annoy me and I'll be in the chat and be like, yo, I didn't actually say that. What the fuck? But most people do realize that it's not exactly me, because obviously it's not fine-tuned enough to be like precisely you, so you'll know that's but still some dumbass would be like, oh my god, she said this, even though it was just a super chat with my voice. So I'm not a big fan.
Decade Pickle?
It makes my skin crawl. I don't like it.
What would you do if you saw like you're on YouTube one day and you're seeing yourself saying things that you know for a fact it's like, what? Step me through how you're feeling about that.
Well, that's the sort of thing you get really stressed out. That would stress me out, I would imagine, if I was to see that. The thing is, it depends. Like, that's the sort of thing that one side would probably say, well, it needs regulation, and then you get people that say, why does it need regulation? But I think a normal, reasonable person would say that they need to start putting there needs to be some kind of parameters put in place. Because like what we're seeing at the moment is like, hasn't grok just been banned in 3 Asian countries? And I think my government is threatening to ban grok or ban X over it as well. And so there needs to be something, because at the moment, I mean, the internet's the wild west at the best of times as it is. Mm-hmm. But something like this is makes you feel a bit nervous.
Well, what about satire? You could say that I'm just satirizing this content creator or this celebrity. You can see that could probably get into some issues right there. I guess like a helpful thing would be almost that you were required to state or display that this is not the actual person. You'd have to like state that up front, that maybe as a potential self-pickle.
I feel like AI with deepfakes is extremely harmful to reputations, because it is a tool that people can use to do exactly that. And I've seen it happen to other celebrities and everything. I've also seen it be used, like, you know, as you guys were just talking about, like on X, to be harmful to people that, you know, in ways that they would not prefer. Um, I am like the personal opinion that if it isn't disclosed that it is a like AI generated image or video or whatever, um, that should have some kind of penalty to it, because you know you don't know what the other person deems harmful to their reputation. I Me and myself as a VTuber, I don't really have to worry much about my own personal fleshy self being on the internet, in that capacity, because I do feel like, though, that's why it's so scary, because when they're generating images of real people, it's scarily accurate, and at least with artwork, you can tell 90% of the time if it's AI or if it's AI animated, you know? But the scariest part that comes down to it is the fact that it is so accurate with people's own likeness and voices too. It's crazy now.
Yeah, yeah. It's I've dabbled a little bit in AI, and in just in my limited capacity, it is very, very impressive stuff of what you can do with it, and you can mimic people's voices almost in real time now. Like I've had some software where you can, as you're talking, it'll just mimic it. So even in my small little world of getting to know this technology,
Yeah, what's that
pretty
one
powerful.
that one module called? It's called Nora or Sora. Sora is like
Sora. Mm-hmm.
insane.
Yep.
I got insanely good really fast.
Blabs, is there another part to this?
No,
Or is
I
that-
showed both of those. It
Oh, you
was
did?
just
Okay.
the 2 videos. So like this one is actually celebrities, right? And then the first one is just like cat girl. With the
All right, so here's
headphones.
my, because I guess we'll wrap it up here in a second, but here's my question for the panel. So let's say you see this. You're seeing content creators being emulated in this capacity. You're seeing this kind of all over the place. With the benefits you guys had mentioned, that AI is positive to you, if this is the ultimate outcome, and let's say it isn't regulated, because I do see it hard to regulate, right? Because especially with the ideas of parody, freedom of speech, things like that. And that also kind of crosses into like people who can just do impressions. If they were on the radio, you wouldn't know that that wasn't Brad Pitt if they can do an impression of them. So like that's never been regulated. So my question is, with all those positives that you had mentioned, do you still feel that AI is a good tool, or when you look at this stuff, you go, you know what, maybe the bad outweighs the good? I'm just kind of curious.
I feel it's kind of like 50-50 almost in my eyes.
Okay.
Because I feel like it can be as equally good as it is bad. There's just a lot of shitty things you can do with it, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say as it stands right now, the bad outweighs the good in my eyes.
Okay.
Just with the way that it's like the way it's going, because I don't feel that, at least for the like general society or like the average person, it's no better than a personal assistant right now. And then otherwise these other like modules can be used to harm people as well. So
What's kind of interesting is, like, you know, we're all based on our careers, we're all, you know, obsessively online, and we know this stuff. I'm kind of curious what the outside public knows anything about AI, because if they don't know much, if it's just something they've heard about, these kind of scams that we were kind of talking about at the top of it, they're, I imagine, very susceptible. This is no longer the 85-year-old grandma that gets duped out of something. This could be a very young family that gets a phone call, you know, with a video image of their son asking for money, you know, from a prank, you know, family across their neighbor or something, and maybe they get scammed out of money. So that's going to be kind of interesting. Decade, what are your thoughts on this? Pro, con?
Again, like being able to use it as a simple tool, that's quite harmless. It's essentially like having a Google search, but it's bolstered up a lot better for you. But some of the stuff that people are able to do with images and video, I do find that really scary. But if there was a choice between have AI, but then have all of these scary things that come along with AI, or go scorched earth, go back to just normal internet, normal Google searches, and just gathering my research information like the old-fashioned way, or learning how to flipping aquascape my flipping fish tank downstairs the old-fashioned way by reading, rather than just saying ChatGPT, tell me how to put this stuff together. Then I'd rather go scorched earth.
Okay.
Because, I mean, for me, it wouldn't make a massive amount of difference, in all honesty.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice to have it. It's nice, but I was fine having Google searches.
Yeah, you're saying that the bad may potentially outweigh the good here, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Blabs?
I'm doing fires right now. Please
Oh,
continue.
okay. No, all right, we're done. All right. So, well, I was going to move on to the next topic, but do you need a little bit more time there, Blabs?
No, I do have
You want to do some
the
super
other
chats?
section of this AI conversation. It's
okay.
not the same though. So I don't know if you guys are you guys fans of SDCC, which is San Diego Comic-Con? Anybody?
My favorite.
I've never been, so
Yeah.
Okay, well that's a
I
no.
don't know what it is.
San Diego Comic-Con?
Oh, I've never been to a Comic-Con.
I've only been to one, so it's not that exciting. However, they did make this statement that I want to show. Oh, guys, it's so tiny on screen. Okay, here we go. All right, so SDCC, which, if I'm not mistaken, they were the ones that had Stanley AI. You guys remember that whole conversation last year with the AI where you could talk to him for like $20 or whatever? I'm pretty sure that was the same Comic-Con.
Are you guys familiar with that? Because if you're not, it's really dystopian, I can tell you.
I think I remember hearing about that, and I didn't believe that it was real.
Yeah. So Decade, especially, and to chat, if you've not heard about this really fast, there was a Comic-Con where, and Blabs, correct me if I'm wrong, where you could, I believe, wait online and potentially spend money to talk to this large rectangle of Stan Lee.
Okay,
and
it wasn't San Diego. It was LA Comic-Con, apparently.
Okay, but it was a Comic-Con of sorts.
Yes.
You could wait online and then talk to this digital version of Stan Lee and ask him a question. So you could talk to people from beyond the grave.
Yeah, it was weird, and it was $20, dude. Not even real. You had to pay $20 to talk to an AI. Anyway, so okay, here is a statement from San Diego Comic-Con, basically saying that they are going to be removing quote-unquote AI artwork. So I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's like the whole shabam. However, there is this statement that we can just read instead that is a lot faster from Culture Crave. It says, San Diego Comic-Con will no longer allow AI art to be displayed at their event. Material created by AI, either partially or wholly, is not allowed in the art show. This follows backlash from artists after SDCC initially indicated AI-generated work would be permitted. So there's one more to this, and then I'll have you guys, give your thoughts and everything. But this is from George. George is a big guy in the arts, and he says, good, AI doesn't belong any place where art is sold or celebrated. It's stolen valor, like the bum who buys an army medal at the pawn shop and says he was in Vietnam. So I'd like to hear your opinions if you think AI artwork should be banned at SDCC.
I agree with that, because if you're in Artist Alley and you're selling imagine how it would feel if you're in an Artist Alley and there's a booth next to you that's selling AI artwork. I don't, that's like insane to me that of course people are likely going to still buy your artwork, but just like the prospect of that would piss me off. I would be upset.
That being said, though, some of these AI arts programs do take a lot of skill to be able to make something nice.
For prompting, yes. Yeah.
My mum's friend made a really nice print for my mum that looks like something that my mum could have gone and bought from a shop. Just a print on a canvas that she then mounted herself, but she had made the picture herself. And she'd used colours specifically that my mum had placed around her lounge so that it would tie in nicely, and made something that was really quite beautiful that she wouldn't have had the skills to have painted that herself. So I can understand how, from someone with a very legitimate skill like being able to draw really well or being able to paint really well, would be oppositional to it, which I feel is a fair enough stance to have. But at the same time, some of these programs, because I looked at them maybe more than a year ago, I took a look at one to see whether I could work out how to use it to try and make my own pictures. And I just gave up in the end. I couldn't get my head around it. It's too difficult. And so there's a level of skill there too, to be able to wield it, I guess. But I think if you're going to have some kind of event where someone's going to be in receipt of rewards need to go, well, for skill, really, don't they? Surely.
Yeah, I agree with all of that you just said.
So I would say, and I'm not going to get too much into my opinion, but I would for me, the biggest question is it art if it's not coming from the mind and imagination of the artist, right? So, for instance, like, if you look at film, if I look at any Steven Spielberg film and you didn't tell me it was Steven Spielberg, I could tell you it was Steven Spielberg because I know his shot choices, I know his pacing, I know everything that makes a Steven Spielberg film. The question I guess I have with AI is that no matter what you prompt, it's not coming from your style, right? Like, so Steven Spielberg has a style. And if Steven Spielberg just started to prompt things, every film that he would put out would not feel like Steven Spielberg because it's not coming from his eye, his experiences, his emotions, his output, how he wants to pace things out visually, him in conversation with his cinematographer. It's essentially typing something out and then the computer essentially doing the style for you. So you really just became a great orator of, hey, guy, do this thing for me without really much without much of the soul of the artist. So my question is that actually even art? And it's not a statement, that's a question. And then I would say, like, for me, I don't know if you necessarily should ban this stuff, but in my personal opinion, I do think it should be at least labeled as such that, this was something that didn't come from this particular artist. This is coming from a shared working environment of the artist and a machine. That makes sense. So, Blabs, would you want it at least segregated out, or you think that this is something that it should be welcome?
I don't really think it should be welcomed, but also, again, like, who am I to say what is welcomed and what's not welcomed? I feel like this is very much a slippery slope when it comes to AI, and I don't think there's ever a win here. That it's here is kind of, we're kind of stuck with it, really. But I don't know. I don't like it.
Maybe give it its own like little section or something.
That's what I was saying. Maybe segregate it
Yeah.
out.
I guess that's like the best thing, since you're kind of stuck with it. It's there.
I think if you're going to go on to like ChatGPT and say something like, draw me a cat wearing an orange playing snooker, and then going and having that picture generated and then selling it at a stall, that's not really right, is it? But I think it depends on the level of it. Like, if you've needed to really, really learn how to use a tool to be able to generate the images, it's like you say, it's a slippery slope. Where do you start and where do you begin? How are you supposed to file that and organize it and come up with rules?
Makes me think of AI commercials, and that drives me insane.
Anything in particular, what aspect of it?
It drives me insane because it reminds me of the one example of like people losing their jobs, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not usually very good either. Like, I know Coca-Cola made one this past holiday season, I believe. It was completely AI generated, and they were like proud of it. They were like, look at our AI generated commercial. I guess that's where that comes from for me, but it's just like a weird thing to see in like mainstream media that it's like popping up more and more, I guess, if that makes sense. It kind of feels like Uncanny Valley almost. Like, it almost makes feel like the dystopian aspect feel real.
Sure. Well, what's going to be interesting to me, and I guess maybe we'll move on to Super Chats, Blabs, in a second. But one of the things that always interests me about this is that, and I promise I'll keep this really short because, boy, I can really start going. So, like, my short little pitch here is, one of the great things about art, I wouldn't necessarily say it has anything to do with skill. I think you could have a 5-year-old draw something, but as long as that came from them and their soul and their perspective, that's artwork to me. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the greatest artist in the world. It's just sharing a perspective. What's going to be interesting to me is that the way life has always been is that we've had artists, filmmakers, musicians, etc., that make content based off of their emotions, the emotions of the time period, the emotions of the politics, the emotions of the people, and all that stuff that's happening around them. And so what you get from that is a shared culture, right? We're all, in a political climate, you're going to start seeing more stories being written and told and filmed from the lens of people that are living through political times, let's say, some trying times. And so that culture that we all share and watch and view and listen to gets into our own zeitgeist, and that changes the hairstyles and the fashion and the slang, all that stuff. What happens when every single thing that's made is made from a machine? And then I wonder, what does our culture and fashion and slang all look like when it's all just made from machines themselves and not something that's actually living in that environment to be inspired to make something? So I'm just going to be, that's the thing that fascinates me most. I don't know if the chat has anything to say about that, but panel, how does that bring to you?
I think one of the things that probably sits very uncomfortably with everybody with AI is that with the increase in it, it is starting to diminish the value of human excellence. So, for example, you always measure human excellence in like the greats of the past, like Beethoven or Einstein or Stephen Hawking. And what you're finding is, like, for example, AI can make you, if you're not careful, really stupid. I think I was watching Dr. K explaining about a study he was reading on one of his podcasts about students using AI to write their scripts, I'm saying scripts because that's what I'm thinking about. Like, I worry about when I write my scripts, like, am I absorbing this information? So the same with essays. When they used ChatGPT to help them write their essays, their recall afterwards was really bad. And this is something I worry about when I write my scripts. Like, one of the reasons why I try to be careful with using AI is that I am frightened that I will not absorb the information when, at the best of times, like going back several years before we had ChatGPT or anything like that, and I would have to sit and read online sources, I already struggled with retaining information. And even now, I struggle with retaining information. So that's why I say, like, use it as a tool, because if you become over-reliant on something like that, how are you supposed to hold on to that information and make sure that your own brain isn't diminishing? That's something that I really, really, really worry about. So, yeah, that's something that I would say to, like, if you've got anyone that does do script writing or writes essays or anything like that, just make sure that you're the one actually writing it so that you're retaining the information yourself.
Sure. On the smallest example, you can see it just with, like, even just calculators, just how, we're so reliant on a calculator now that, if I don't have my calculator now and I owe, I gave you $1 and I don't know what change to give somebody, like, if you don't have your device in front of you, you fall apart as a society. So even on that small level, you could see how that could make someone lazy and dependent on a machine. Pickle, any thoughts on that?
I kind of sympathize with that idea, because I can actually use myself as a direct example. The last class that I took in college a couple of years ago was an elective class. It was about Civil War, which I used to be super into history and stuff in high school, so I was like, okay, I'll take this class. And I remember towards the end of the semester being so checked out that I had prompted in ChatGPT to write my responses to the essay prompts that they had for the class. and I would then read the essay prompt, and I would go in, and I guess I would basically edit or proofread the responses and then change them to my own wording. But if I had to tell you that I retained any of that information from that class, absolutely not. I did not leave that class learning more about the Civil War than I had already known.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I agree with all of that. The creativity thing, you know, I believe it diminishes the value of human creativity and otherwise as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'd finish up on is, you know, like even on like a small level, like, you know, like we've all been through breakups and, you know, or whatever life trauma, or maybe someone unfortunately passes away in your life. And there's that song or that movie or whatever, that book that you return to that kind of gives you that guidance because it came from an artist with that same experience. And you could really feel the pain or the sorrow or the joy, whatever it is, in that medium, right? And it concerns me when we'll be looking for that from ones and zeros, when ones and zeros is telling us what that human experience of loss is, and that's the art being fed to us. Mike, I wonder what that looks like for that generation that's getting that from a machine that doesn't really understand it. It's merely just looking out algorithmically and saying, okay, this is what I believe a breakup feels like, and this is what I believe will be inspiring to you. Like what psychologically that could be to that generation. It's going to be an interesting thing for me personally, but I think it's all safe to say that AI is here. So now let's see how it rolls out.
Your dad said you should watch this next video, and you don't want to disappoint Dad, do you?